Okay, I am Cornelious Martin Boekhout, and I was born 12/11/26 in Mobridge, South Dakota. That makes me 82, just about 83 now, in December. My father, his name is Cornelious Marinus, and he was from Rotterdam, Holland, and came to the United States. And my mother was from Norway, and she was sponsored by her brothers who were in Mobridge, South Dakota, and she came over also and landed at Ellis Island, and she came then to Mobridge, and this is where she met my father. Well, I was a little guy. I played the trumpet in band in high school, and the trumpet was almost as big as I was. And I sang in the choir and enjoyed those things. Basically for playing with my friends, and I was quite mechanical. I loved to make cars to ride in, and we did that out of a wash machine motor, and that was kind of fun. And other than that, I just kept busy, for sure. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I knew that I didn't want to be a mortician, as my father was. So it had to be a development, of course, of my youth and growth, and that's basically, I didn't have any desire to be an attorney, a pastor, or whatever, you know. I didn't have any definite things I wanted to do. I think as growing up and being with my family, I found that boys really don't gear themselves to any certain occupation as girls do. Because my daughters, of course, they all like to be in the medical field, and this is what they done, and this is what they strived for. So basically, I myself didn't have that because there was things that I knew I had to do, and like going to the service, and I knew that I had to spend 2 years in the service, because this was a requirement by the United States government. And so consequently, that was my first step in growing up.
I was born in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, on November 20th, 1933, and I was named Maxine Ann Battalion. And later on, I got the nickname of Mickey. Well, my dad was my dad was illegitimate, and He was born to Martha Robinson, who was Badalyun at the time he was born. And he was born in September 15th, 1912, I believe, and in Pine Ridge. And my mother was from Norfolk, Nebraska, and she was born May 6th, 1914. And then her parents moved to South Dakota, down by Martin. And my grandmother had a big farm ranch, and her brother ran that. And she had cattle, and she married a Max Hill, and he was selling off her cattle before she realized what was happening. And so she got rid of him. He moved to Hemingford, Nebraska. And my grandmother eventually sold her ranch and her cattle and her house on the ranch property and moved into town, which was Wambly, South Dakota, on the reservation. And then my dad worked for the government, building dams and roads on the reservation. And I remember as a child, we lived in a tent out on the projects, even in the wintertime. Then I went and stayed with my grandparents when I was in the 1st and 2nd grade. And my parents bought a house in Wambly, and my mother and myself, and let's see, there was Wanda and Lila and Buzz and I. And we lived there until I was 9, and then my dad didn't want us to grow up on the reservation, so we moved to Hemingford, Nebraska. And my dad worked for the railroad, and then we moved to Crawford, Nebraska, and my one sister was born there. And I went to school, and then when I was in the 7th grade, we moved to Jebel, Wyoming. And my youngest brother was born in Wyoming. And in January of 1947, my father was killed in a mine accident. And there was 6 of us. I was 13, and my youngest brother was 14 months old. So we moved back to Ardmore, South Dakota, where my grandparents, my mother's parents, lived, and we bought a house and went to school there. And I worked in Crawford, Nebraska, which was about, maybe 40, 50 miles from Ardmore. I stayed with some friends and worked as a waitress, and I was 14. And then I went home, went to school, and then I worked in Hot Springs when summer vacation. I worked at the Sisters Hospital, and I worked in the diet kitchen on the 2nd floor. And I worked there all summer, and then I went home and went to school. But I helped my mom buying shoes and clothing for the younger ones. And I don't know, I just felt like I grew up really fast after my father was killed in a mine accident. And then I met Corny when I was 16, and we went together for a couple of years or longer, and got married in Missoula, Montana.